There are more than 100 locations of interest for the Delta outbreak. The central Auckland bar is just one of them.
11 new cases and an expert prediction that lockdown's about to get longer.
And relief for parents. They'll be able to book their 12 to 15-year-old kids for a jab from tomorrow. Tēnā tātou katoa. Good evening. Prepare for more time in lockdown, New Zealand. Modelling experts predict the Prime Minister will make it longer for everyone at 3 p.m. tomorrow. But Auckland and Coromandel could face 3 to 4 weeks at home. And here's why. 11 new cases today, taking our total to 21, all in Auckland and all Delta. There are more than 100 locations of interest. This bar in central Auckland is just one of them and was visited 3 times over 2 weekends. These pictures are from one of those nights. A big piece of the puzzle has been found. Most cases are linked to a returnee from New South Wales who did their managed isolation at the Crown Plaza. And more Kiwis will be protected. Parents can book their 12 to 15-year-old children to get a jab from tomorrow. Health correspondent Lucy Warhurst begins our coverage.
The queues for testing started early. This is Balmoral in Auckland. I'll keep that running to show you how long they are. And this is why so many people are lining up. The Prime Minister lined up the kick.
I know we're all prepared for cases to get worse before they get better.
The Director General of Health knocked it home.
Today I can report there are 11 new positive cases of COVID-19 in the community.
A total of 21 Delta cases so far, all in quarantine. 12 definitely linked to the Auckland cluster, 8 still under investigation. One other isn't linked. It's an international airline crew member who flew back from Japan. But there's been a crucial breakthrough. Genome sequencing has confirmed the link to the New South Wales outbreak.
That our current positive cases are a close match to a recent returnee from Sydney.
They arrived on a managed red zone flight on August the 7th, almost 2 weeks ago. A day 1 test on the 8th came back positive on the 9th. They were transferred from managed isolation at the Crown Plaza to quarantine at Jet Park that same day. A week later, on the 16th, they became unwell and were taken to Middlemore Hospital.
Today we believe we have uncovered the piece of the puzzle we were looking for. And that means our ability to circle the virus, lock it down and stamp it out generally has greatly improved.
So we know how it likely got here. Now we need to find out how it got out.
We have to learn from these failures and make sure they don't happen again, or we minimise the chance of them happening again.
And there are 1 or 2 missing links. Testing is key and people are turning out in their droves. So it's not even 11 o'clock and the people at the front of the queue tell me they've been waiting 3 to 4 hours. The queue at St Luke's a kilometre long. This queue in Balmoral is even worse. The queue goes 1.5 kilometres in that direction, almost back to Mount Eden. Yes, the line of traffic I showed at the start is still going. Are you having fun?
We are.
How long have you been waiting?
About an hour and a half now.
Oh, sorry, you've got a bit to go. Oh. Good luck. For most, it was not fun.
So I woke up with a sore throat and a runny nose, and I work at a hospital, so...
Got a bit of a cold and flu symptom, so I thought I'd come and get checked.
How long have you been waiting?
Oh, almost 4 hours.
Just got a cough, so just wanting to make sure it's nothing serious.
These flatmates are linked to a location of interest, Auckland University of Technology.
Amelia was at AUT.
I was at AUT at the time.
Are you worried?
Yes, very worried.
Yeah.
I think it's just scary now, all of the different locations coming up.
And as the list grows, so too will the queues. Thousands were tested today, but many were turned away, only to try again tomorrow.
So Lucy, why is the Crown Plaza such a crucial piece in the puzzle?
Well, this is an interesting development. 3 people staying at the Crown Plaza MIQ facility have now tested positive for COVID-19 on day 12 of their stay. Now, the Crown Plaza is where the Sydney case originally stayed, and these 3 were in the adjacent room. Now, all the people on the same floor are being stopped from leaving while they investigate to see if there's a link between the Sydney case and these 3. And with Delta, that's a risk.
Thanks very much for the update, Lucy.
Well, as we mentioned earlier, there are now more than 100 locations of interest between Auckland and the Coromandel. That number is only growing. Some of the places listed, including one central Auckland nightclub, could have seen hundreds of people exposed to an infectious COVID case. Alice Wilkins reports.
Supermarkets, restaurants, schools, beaches, churches, movie theatres, the list has exploded. But it's locations of interest that typically look like this that are a major cause of concern for this outbreak.
And this certainly means there's a potential that we could have had several super spreading events.
Auckland Central's Bar 101 is listed not once as a location of interest, but on 3 different nights on 2 weekends. The CCTV from inside the bar on one of those nights, Saturday the 14th of August, shows a large crowd closely packed in on the dance floor.
The Friday night we see that there were some people in there for quite a long time. On a night where we had roughly 900 people come through the building.
Owner John Lawrenson says although nightclubbers don't always scan in, a younger crowd usually has other contact tracing enabled.
QR codes were definitely there. Look, most of this crowd will have their Bluetooth turned on as well.
Other large-scale locations include Sky City Casino. It's estimated around 1,000 patrons and 240 staff were on the main gaming floor at the same time as a positive case. The Central Auckland Church of Christ is also on the list, more than 100 attendees present on the weekend in question. And an AUT student is another positive case. They attended a lecture with 84 others while infectious. The full list of locations is more than 100 long and it just keeps growing. The Ministry of Health is constantly updating the list with new details, but already there are simply too many to name them all.
The locations that are listed, obviously they're busy, crowded locations, lots of people in a confined environment, so that is the type of environment that is high risk.
Keeping up with Delta and everywhere it may have been is a fast and hard game.
And Alice, there are 2 new locations of interest that are supermarkets straight after the lockdown announcement on Tuesday night.
Yes, New World Mount Roskill between 7 and 7:20 p.m. and New World Green Bay between 7 and 8 p.m. So anyone who was there frantically trying to stock up on supplies will now have to self-isolate and get a test. It's also worth noting that we have a new earliest location of interest. It was on August the 1st and it's Cafe Melba in Hillsborough.
Alice, thank you.
Children aged 12 and over can now get vaccinated. As Amelia Wade reports, the Prime Minister is imploring parents to trust the vaccine.
Epidemiologist Michael Baker, essential to New Zealand's COVID response, joining the jabbed.
Absolutely painless.
And now, officially, all essential workers will be able to get theirs too.
Our plans to vaccinate these workers starts with those who are customer facing.
And then others on the front line, supermarket workers, firefighters, bus drivers, police. Essential workers aren't the only ones now eligible for the jab. 12 to 15-year-olds can also join the queue, all 265,000 of them.
So it's both for individual protection, but it's also to try and stop the spread through the community. The more people we have vaccinated, the less this virus can spread.
Children can book a vaccine with their parents if they're already eligible. That's everyone over 40. That includes Molly Hammond, though there's one problem.
I don't like needles, so...
Dad Troy is keen for her to get it, but says ultimately it's up to her.
That we all make the decision together versus forcing my decision on her.
Many of us are parents ourselves and take this duty of making decisions about other people's children extremely seriously. But it is safe and it's the right thing to do.
But while more Kiwis are eligible, those already eligible and booked are facing delays after the rollout was paused on Tuesday. And it appears the government moved on vaccinating essential workers before telling those giving the jabs. Newshub's heard from numerous workers who tried to get the vaccine but were turned away.
We're working with employers of these essential workforces to identify the individuals, and workers you can expect to hear from your employer with extra details.
But while the rollout keeps rolling, we do have another tool against Delta. Masks are now mandatory when visiting essential services like supermarkets.
So far, the customers have been really behaving very well. Everybody's turning up with masks, or practically everybody.
And both chains are ready to call the cops on those who don't comply. That could mean an instant $300 fine. But masking up every time you head out the door isn't always mandatory.
For instance, engaging in a very strenuous run where a mask might become, I couldn't speak to personal experience, but where a mask might become difficult.
But don't do Delta a favour and stick to the 2-metre rule. Amelia Wade, Newshub.
Batten down the hatches, experts and scientists are warning Kiwis to prepare for a lengthier lockdown. Political editor Tova O'Brien reports.
Living the lockdown life, it has some obvious benefits.
Well, obviously to keep us healthy and safe.
Time with the family more.
But boy, can it be tough.
Not being able to see family. Lack of freedom.
And these people are going to lose their jobs.
And Auckland is already bracing for more of this. Lockdown longer.
It will be extended. There's no doubt about it.
I think so.
1 more week.
Probably. I mean, this variant is very quick.
Experts are lining up in agreement. Those who provide COVID modelling to the government say Auckland and Coromandel prepare to hunker down.
We could be looking at 3 to 4 weeks. It'd be just because of the size of the outbreak. It's in younger people who moved around, the characteristics.
Our scientists too, because we're worth it.
It's reasonable expectation that the lockdown may need to last longer. And that's to give all of us the certainty that when we come out of it, we're going to emerge into a virus-free country.
The stunning south is already feeling a bit like that, a virus-free island.
We're hoping it won't last for too long.
We don't want to go back in for 6 weeks like we did last time.
I think it'll go longer.
For the South Island, I know it's really frustrating when you're in the situation you're in and the outbreak can feel so far away.
Not just frustrating, for some South Island businesses, it's murder.
It's just killing the South.
Including Tracy Morrow's boutique wedding florist business in Luggett near Wanaka. She's had 5 cancellations this week. The $800 worth of flowers delivered the morning after lockdown. Pretty, but useless.
This time it's really rocked me. Is it actually worth it anymore? I just don't think it is.
The testing queues in Christchurch belie the need for far more community testing in all southern communities. The government says that's the fastest route out of lockdown.
Putting that ring around the outbreak, the sooner we're able to do that, the higher confidence we can have.
Longer lockdown would mean more time to relearn the lockdown rules, time to read the signs.
You're not meant to be on the bars on level 4.
Oh, OK, I'll let them know.
There's a mistake, or I'll let you off of it.
And for the most part, police are letting people off too, barring a very small handful of anti-lockdown protesters who are feeling the full force of the law. Kiwis are predominantly behaving well.
The police are finding that people are being very compliant so far.
And the second time round, there are even fewer excuses. That most infamous of lockdown breach spots, the Big Easy mountain bike trail, is also making it clear. Locked up so no health ministers or anyone else can go for a blat.
Yes, well, Tova joins us now. Kia ora, Tova. And what is the likelihood of a longer lockdown?
Mike, it's extremely likely that the rest of the country will at least join Auckland and the Coromandel for the full week. The actual decision won't be made until tomorrow with all of the latest data, but we are heading into a weekend, party time, and Delta loves a crowd. There are a few things to note. The government has a real reluctance when it comes to yo-yoing. It's looking hawkishly at the situation in New South Wales, and as one government source just told me, caution is our friend. So although there is optimism in the beehive, there's also a sense that the progress made today is no slam dunk.
Tēnā koe, Tova.
The Cook Strait ferries will sail for another day, and travellers trying to fly out of Queenstown have been thrown a lifeline. As Isabel Ewing reports, the government has extended the travel window by 24 hours.
Sayonara to the best snow of the season. Queenstown is steadily emptying of out-of-towners. Since Tuesday evening's level 4 announcement, holidaymakers have been scrambling to get home within the 48-hour window.
I waited an hour and 48 minutes. Actually ended up then talking to someone, and she was great and sorted all our flights out.
The website crashed a couple of times, and then my family managed to get on a flight earlier today, but then I couldn't get on that flight, so I'm still here waiting.
It's been a busy day in the skies.
We've been really busy over the last couple of days, moving lots of people across the country. About 35,000 people are being moved, 15,000 alone today.
and thousands of those were in Queenstown. Air New Zealand saying this morning it needed more time to clear the backlog. The Prime Minister responded.
Ministers have made a decision to extend the period for air travel from Queenstown and the Cook Strait Ferry for 24 hours.
The Inter-Islander is putting on more sailings off the Aratiri tonight and tomorrow to provide extra capacity. Proof of address is required at check-in. Those leaving Queenstown today were mostly cutting short holidays, but despite their disappointment, were impressed by the airport's calm atmosphere.
We were a bit worried about turning up at the airport and having crowds of people and it being kind of not a very safe place to be, but it's really organised and calm.
And for those not yet on their way, airlines believe the extra 24 hours is enough time to get everyone home.
I think we've put on an extra 7 flights down to Queenstown tomorrow. We had 4 extra ones yesterday, as well as putting on some larger planes.
Empty ski fields and a soon-to-be empty airport.
Isabel, how many people are still waiting on flights and where are they heading to?
Well, there is capacity for 1,400 people to leave tomorrow, and the airlines are hoping that that's going to be enough to get everybody home. The airport says it has 7 flights heading out tomorrow, most of those to Auckland and some to Wellington. Now, by the time the last jet leaves tomorrow, 8,000 people will have left Queenstown since lockdown began. Now, many of those were bailing on ski holidays, so although it is going to be a relief for people to be heading home, it is disappointing for many and for tourism operators who will be hoping that they'll be able to welcome people back here as soon as possible, especially with all that lonely fresh snow out on the hills.
Isabel Ewing live from Queenstown. Thank you.
Well, Ingrid's in now, and it was a cold night around the country.
Yeah, all that snow, as Isabel mentioned. Lots of places well below zero in the wee hours of this morning. Tekapō was the coldest, down to -4.6 degrees. More snow on the way for the South Island, but I do have some sunny news too. I'll have the full forecast right after sport.
Time to be staying inside. Well, Coromandel residents are anxiously awaiting the results of their COVID tests. Hundreds lined up for testing again today, and many took up the offer of a vaccine at the same time.
And some of the big Taliban bosses rolled into Kabul today, while women queued to flee the Afghan capital.
Tonight on The Project, we all know we're dealing with a pandemic, but what's a pingdemic, and are we in one already?
Plus, we meet the Canadians who have flocked to New Zealand, but why aren't they the polite guests you'd expect? Find out at 7.